to choose like one topic type thing, I chose to do it on my grandpa. You could do like a person, a place in the community, something like that. I took one aspect of his life that was really important to him, which was car restoration. And so I put all the pieces in a toolbox because I kind of wanted to do like pieces as opposed to like one, like a book or something like that. One of my pieces was a eulogy, so I put it on like a black type thing. One piece was a poem, and I made it in the shape of cardboards to kind of go along with the theme. And then I did a personification piece as if this was like a car that was like in pieces in his garage. So I had it so the monologue came out and made up a little story of what I thought the car would be saying. So those are just some of my favorite pieces for the project. When I first told Dr. Mack what I was doing, she didn't think I was going to get a lot of material. I live in a small town called Sabina. Growing up, there was a old folk tale that went around that there was this African-American man, they named him Eugene, and he was kept mummified in a building behind the funeral home, and 1.5 million people came and visited him. Never identified. So I made it look like his headstone. They ended up burying him in 1964, and he was found dead in 1929, so he was on display that many years. Throughout it, you'll see all the way through my project, I did one of the books that you sign when you go to funeral homes, a registry book. They've lost the registry books, I've just found out. They can't find them anymore, and there were celebrities that had signed it that came through on buses, because we were located on the 3C highway, which connects Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. So all throughout I have these, and there's miscellaneous names signed. I did poems. I did several poems because I thought that was a neat way. I did one of the little pop-out things with another poem on it. I did a memoir, and I did it from his perspective, which was fun because I got to take on the perspective of a dead guy that I didn't know. So I got to pretty much go with whatever I wanted to go with. And to me, that was my favorite one. If you know the story or ever read up on the story, the reason he eventually was buried was because of a lady named Ruth Lyons. She had a TV show called the 50/50 Club, and she pretty much destroyed the Littleton Funeral Home and the people that worked there. So I did a manuscript of her show as to when she, threw her big red flag up on the situation. I also did, in my research, I found out that they featured him in a magazine, but I couldn't find the name of the magazine, so I just did a Life magazine, and I made a magazine article in it, so made it look like the cover from one. I did newspaper articles as well, and I focused off of, I have real articles in here. Sorry. You're welcome. And then my final one was I did his obituary type thing that you would get when you go to the funeral. And that was neat, the eulogy, sorry. And this is his actual picture, so I'll leave it on there. It's kind of morbid if you don't want to, if you have a weak stomach, don't worry. But that was my project.
Tell about your Facebook page and your hopes for the future.
A friend of mine, I'd always wanted to write a book because not many people know about Eugene now. It's kind of a thing of the past. So it's always been an interest of mine to write some kind of little spiel. He's in like the Haunted Ohio books and the Ohio Oddities. There's little blurbs of them. Some of the information is completely wrong. So I always wanted to do a book about it. So a friend of mine got together and she did a senior project on it. And so we decided we're going to try to write a book and get the story out there. We've started a Facebook page. I think it's Eugene of Sabina is the name. Yes.
How he died?
He was found. It was a stray man just kind of wandering through the town of Sabina. Sabina's not very big. It was one traffic light at the time. Found in between Sabina and Washington Courthouse, leaning against a pole. People had seen him earlier that day, and then the next morning they found him propped up, and no identification on him whatsoever, except for an address
and the Cincinnati police at that time came up and investigated, and the only thing that they could find was it led to an empty lot. And the guy that used to live in the empty lot's name was Eugene, so that's how they gave him his name.
Did the funeral home notify him?
Yes. And then they had a little building. If you look through my project, you'll see the picture of the little building. They kept him in, and people could go and see him. At first, there wasn't a fence up, so people could touch him. But then, they put a fence up because then people started to steal him. He made one trip up to OSU. And they laid him on a park bench and it was college kids, laid him on a park bench, covered him with newspapers, and a janitor found him up there. And then he knew, because it was publicized back then, as to what this was, so he called the funeral home, and they came and got him. So it was a very fun story. So there's a Facebook page. You can look it up. And they're also, I don't know when we'll start the book. We're both finishing up college, but it's been fun.
Aubrey?
Okay, I did my project on my husband's grandma, so I kind of talked about this in class. If any of you are married, you know the importance of trying to find a way to connect with your in-laws. So this really provided me with the opportunity to get to know her. And as a result, I feel as though I've formed, more of a connection with her and her history. So I think it's really something that we will love to show our kids one day. The basic story of her life and my inspiration for the project was that her grandparents were immigrants from Italy, so they moved over here. And it was always a dream of her family to open their own Italian restaurant. Well, her mother and stepfather were able to do that, and they opened their own restaurant in Enid, Ohio. It's actually the Enid Eagles building right across from George Rogers Park, but that was originally their restaurant. So they ran the restaurant for a number of years. And the neat story of that was that my husband's grandpa and his family would often regularly eat dinner at this restaurant, and she became friends with the family, and it would be her husband's sister, so she became really good friends with her as well. And in the process, she got to know her husband, or her soon-to-be husband, and they sort of fell in love through the restaurant. So with that connection, of course, they fell in love, got married, had 4 kids. One of the children is my husband's mother. So it's a really neat story. I titled it Food, Family, and Love, the story of Lena Haley, which is her name. One of the ideas Dr. Mack gave us in class was to use paper bags you just get out of a grocery store and you fold them in half. So one end is closed, of course, but then the other end you get to leave it open for some neat things that you can put in there, like pictures. So throughout, I had some different pictures of her and her husband, or her parents that own the restaurant, or the interior of the restaurant, and I just scanned them in and then put them in the little slots. So that was something that was neat. These were pictures that I'd never seen before, so to get to see these people was really interesting. I made up a restaurant menu based off of what she told me about what they served at the restaurant. So I started to talk about the restaurant and her Italian family and things like that. I did a newspaper article to talk about the opening of the restaurant. I did a Dear Abby article, like she's sort of coming of age and learning about her family and things like that. So that was neat. I got to write from her point of view a lot of times, so I felt like I was really connected with her. I provided a family tree so that everybody could keep track of the people involved in the story. What else? I did 2 diary articles, so that was interesting from her point of view as well. I did a phone conversation, so I just provided an old style phone, and then you can pull up the information. So that one was fun as well. Let's see, I did another thought piece for my genre. And then the last thing I did was a wedding invitation, or an announcement of the marriage between her and her husband. So that was sort of the culminating event of the Italian restaurant opening and meeting people, her Italian heritage, and then finally getting married to my husband's grandpa. And he's no longer living, so it's just her. She's the only one. So anyways, it was really interesting. I got to learn a lot about his family and the process, and I think, like I said, this is something that I'll always keep to show our kids, of course, because it's our family. So